There's a song hidden in this 500-year-old painting, and it's written on a man's butt. Look at this. Over 12 feet of madness, hundreds of naked bodies, giant strawberries, a man being kissed by a pig in a nun's habit, a knife blade held between two severed ears, and in the corner of hell, musical notes tattooed across a sinner's backside while a demon licks them. In 2014, a college student transcribed those notes into actual music. People call it the 600-year-old butt song from hell. But here's the thing. That's not even the strangest part of this painting. Scholars have studied it for 5 centuries, and they still cannot agree on what it means. Is it a warning against sin? A celebration of pleasure? The fever dream of a madman? Or a manual for a medieval sex cult? This is The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch. Painted between 1490 and 1510, it's oil on oak panels, and it's 220 centimeters tall by 389 centimeters wide. That's over 7 feet tall and nearly 13 feet wide across. It currently hangs in the Museo del Prado in Madrid, where it's one of the most visited paintings in the entire collection. But for nearly 350 years, this painting wasn't in a museum. It was in a bedroom. The bedroom of Philip II, King of Spain, ruler of the largest empire on earth. Every single night, he fell asleep staring at naked bodies, demons, and torture. The question is, why? By the end of this video, you'll understand what we actually know about this painting, what we think we know, and the one theory about its meaning that could change how you see everything in it. But first, we need to talk about the man who created it, because almost everything you think you know about Hieronymus Bosch is probably wrong. Hieronymus Bosch was born Hieronymus van Aken, and what we know about this man is almost nothing. No letters survive, there were no diaries, no record of what he thought about his own paintings. We don't know his exact birthday. We estimate around 1450 based on a single portrait drawn near the end of his life that shows a man in his late 60s. He was born in a Dutch town called Hertogenbosch. Locals call it Den Bosch. That's where he got his professional name. His real family name was Van Aken, meaning from Aachen. 4 of his uncles were painters. His father was a painter, his grandfather was a painter, so we assume they taught him. But we still just assume. When Bosch was about 13 years old, a catastrophic fire swept through his hometown. 4,000 houses burned. He almost certainly watched it happen. Some scholars think this fire planted the seeds for the burning cities that would later appear in his paintings of hell. Around 1480, he married a woman named Alette, who was several years older than him and considerably wealthier. Her family owned property in a nearby town where the couple settled. This marriage made Bosch financially comfortable for life. He never had to paint for money. In 1486, he joined something called the Brotherhood of Our Lady, a highly respected religious organization with about 40 elite members from his town and 7,000 outer members from across Europe. What exactly they did remains somewhat mysterious. What influence they had on his art is unknown. He died on August 9, 1516, and his funeral was held in the Church of St. John. That's it. That's basically everything we know about one of the most famous artists in history. Now let's look at what he left behind. The Garden of Earthly Delights is a triptych, meaning it's made of 3 connected panels that fold like doors. When closed, you see the outside. When open, you see the inside. And those are 2 very different experiences. Closed, the panels show Earth during the 3rd day of creation, before humans, before animals, just water, land, and the first planets emerging. God appears as a tiny figure in the upper left corner holding a Bible. Above him, Latin text from Psalm 33. For he spoke and it was done. He commanded and it stood firm. The whole scene is painted in grisaille. That's a technique using only shades of gray and green, no color. Scholars think this represents a time before the sun and moon were created, a world without light. What you see before you open the doors is a world waiting to begin. And then you open it. The left panel shows paradise, the Garden of Eden, God presenting Eve to Adam. But look at Adam's face. His expression isn't peaceful. Art historians have described it as surprise or amazement, even what looks like sexual arousal. Eve's body is positioned seductively. A snake already curls around a tree in the background. Some scholars see original sin already happening in this scene. Others see innocence, but nobody agrees. The center panel is the garden that gives the painting its name. The horizon matches the left panel exactly, suggesting this is the same world, just at a later time. But what kind of world is this? Hundreds of nude men and women frolic in meadows and pools. They ride horses, lions, bears, giraffes, unicorns in an endless circular parade. Giant strawberries, cherries, and other fruits have grown to impossible sizes. People emerge from shells. They float inside transparent bubbles. They feast. They embrace. They do things that would have been considered sinful in 1500. They do these things without shame. There are no children in this scene. There are no old people. Time seems to have stopped. Is this paradise before the fall? Is this humanity's future if Adam and Eve had never sinned? Or is this a warning about what happens when pleasure becomes the only purpose of life? The right panel removes all doubt that something has gone horribly wrong, because this is hell. The first thing you notice is the darkness. The previous panels were bathed in daylight. This one is set at night. Cities burn in the background. Their flames reflect off frozen water in the foreground. Then you start seeing the details. A man crucified on a harp. Another impaled on the strings of a lute. Musical instruments, which in medieval symbolism represented pleasure and sometimes lust, have become torture devices. A choir of the damned sings from a musical score written in an open book. And yes, that same musical notation appears on the buttocks of a naked man lying face down beneath a giant lute, while a toad-like demon extends its tongue toward him. In 2014, a music student named Amelia Hamrick at Oklahoma Christian University noticed those notes and transcribed them into modern notation. She called it the 600-year-old butt song from hell. The internet went appropriately insane. Musicians have recorded it on lute, harp, hurdy-gurdy, and piano. It's surprisingly beautiful, which makes you wonder what Bosch was actually trying to say. The centerpiece of hell is two images you can't unsee. First, the tree man, a hollow figure whose torso is a broken eggshell, whose legs are dead tree trunks standing in boats, whose head supports a disc where demons parade around a giant set of bagpipes. His face gazes out at the viewer with an expression that art historian Hans Belting described as irony and wistfulness. Some believe this is a self-portrait of Bosch himself. Second, the Prince of Hell. A bird-headed monster sitting on a toilet throne, devouring human bodies and excreting them into a transparent chamber pot below. At his feet, a pig wearing a nun's habit tries to seduce a man into signing legal documents. Every detail seems to mean something. But what? For a painting this provocative, you might expect it was hidden away in some secret location. Well, you'd be wrong. The first documented mention of the Garden of Earthly Delights comes from 1517, just 1 year after Bosch died. An Italian traveler named Antonio de Biadis described it hanging in the palace of the House of Nassau in Brussels. This was not a private home. This was a high-profile political location where heads of state visited regularly. The painting may have been commissioned by either Engelbrecht II of Nassau, who died in 1504, or his successor Henry III. Both were wealthy, influential, and known as serious art collectors. The painting wasn't hidden, it was displayed. After Henry III died, it passed to his nephew, William the Silent, leader of the Dutch revolt against Spain. In 1568, the Duke of Alba seized the painting as war spoils and brought it to Spain. Philip II bought it at an auction in 1591 and presented it to El Escorial, his massive palace monastery complex outside Madrid. But he didn't hang it in a gallery. He kept it in his private quarters. Contemporary records suggest it hung in his bedroom. Think about that. The most powerful man in the Western world fell asleep every night looking at this painting. Why? Some historians believe Philip saw it as a moral reminder, a warning to stay righteous. Others think he was simply fascinated by Bosch's imagination. Philip owned at least 26 Bosch paintings, the largest collection in the world at the time. For 500 years, scholars have fought over what the Garden of Earthly Delights actually means. The traditional view, it's a warning. The left panel shows the origin of sin through Eve's creation, the center shows humanity surrendering to pleasure, and the right shows the punishment that follows. Read left to right, it's a simple moral message. Don't do this or this will happen to you. But in 1947, a German scholar named Wilhelm Franger proposed something radical. He argued that Bosch was a member of a heretical sect called the Adamites, who believed humanity could return to the innocence of Eden through sexual ritual. Under this interpretation, the center panel isn't a warning, it's a utopia, a vision of paradise regained through guiltless pleasure. Franger's theory made the painting more interesting and more disturbing. Most scholars reject it because there's no evidence Bosch had any connection to the Adamites. But the theory persists because it explains something the traditional interpretation cannot. Why does the center panel look so joyful? Look at the faces of the figures in the garden. They're not ashamed. They're not anxious. They're having a good time. If Bosch wanted to warn viewers about sinful pleasure, why did he make it look so appealing? A more recent theory suggests the painting should be read right to left, not left to right. That the normal order was deliberately inverted by Bosch to disguise his true meaning from church authorities. Under this reading, the painting shows humanity's journey from hell through transformation to unity with the divine. The honest answer is, we don't know, and we may never know. And that uncertainty is part of why this painting still captivates us. The Garden of Earthly Delights moved from El Escorial to the Museo del Prado in 1939 during the Spanish Civil War for safekeeping. It never went back. Today, it's one of the most visited paintings in Madrid. Salvador Dali and Joan Miró both saw it in person and cited Bosch as a direct influence on their surrealist work. The tree man, the impossible creatures, the dreamlike logic of the imagery, all of it anticipated surrealism by 400 years. When you stand in front of the actual painting, the scale overwhelms you. You can spend an hour finding new details. A man with a flower growing from his rear, a figure trapped inside a mussel shell, the reflection of a woman's face on a demon's butt, and somewhere in the corner of hell, a song written on human flesh that waited 500 years for someone to play it. So what does the Garden of Earthly Delights mean? Maybe Bosch was warning us about sin. Maybe he was celebrating pleasure. Maybe he was a member of a secret cult. Maybe he was just a strange man from a small Dutch town who saw his city burn when he was 13 and spent the rest of his life painting what he couldn't forget. The painting doesn't give us answers. It gives us questions. And those questions lead to more questions, which is perhaps the point. 500 years later, we're still staring at it, still arguing about it, still discovering things hidden in plain sight. And somewhere in the Prado, behind protective glass, hundreds of naked figures continue their eternal frolic, waiting for us to finally understand. Or maybe understanding isn't the point. Maybe just looking is enough. What do you see when you look at this painting? Paradise? Warning? Madness?